All it took was one phone call to Homeland Security to end their careers. No yelling, no slamming fists, just a calm voice over a secure earpiece. And then everything collapsed. Elmsville was a quiet town, tucked deep between ancient oak forests in rural Georgia. The kind of place where time seemed frozen, where distance was measured more by suspicious glances than by road signs. And on what seemed like an ordinary morning, a woman stepped out of a silver rental car, unaware that she had just walked into the epicenter of a political earthquake. No one at the old rusted gas station knew who she was. All they saw was a black woman, her cap pulled low, holding a device that looked unusual. No uniform, no badge, no bodyguards, no diplomatic plates. She blended into the dusty backdrop of this forgotten town, just another passerby. But what they didn't know was that this woman was Selena Ward, Director of the United States Department of Homeland Security, a woman with top-tier security clearance, a woman with the authority to shut down entire regions of the country, a woman who had stood behind presidents in the most critical hours of American history, and right there, under the scorching southern sun and behind those curious, lingering stares, an insult was made. They didn't know who she was, but they chose how to treat her. Their only mistake? They assumed she couldn't make them pay. The rented SUV rattled over potholes on the rural road leading into Elmsville. No sirens, no flags, just a woman behind the wheel, her eyes laser-focused, as if she were navigating an invisible battlefield. Selena Ward didn't need anyone to clear a path. She'd been carving her own way for a long time. In Washington, her name made national security officials sit up straight. But here, in a town, without even a single traffic camera, Selena was just another black stranger in a worn khaki jacket and unbranded sneakers. She stepped out of the vehicle, holding a compact encryption device, something that looked like a strange kind of phone. The satellite signal was weak. She needed to find higher ground, away from interference, to complete a secure call back to the command center in D.C. That call couldn't wait. An intelligence brief had just been confirmed. A transnational terror network was in motion. She needed to authorize a tactical response immediately. But as Selena stood quietly among dusty pickup trucks, with the smell of gasoline in the air and the sound of cicadas humming around her, she didn't notice the gaze watching her from inside the station. It wasn't professional vigilance. It was something else. A quiet prejudice so deeply rooted, it stained the waiting room walls like years-old cigarette smoke. She said nothing. She didn't need to, because people with real power rarely need an introduction. From behind the old cash register, Meredith Cole squinted through the dusty glass. She'd been working at Forest Creek Mart for 19 years. Anything unusual, she noticed. And today, the unusual thing was a black woman standing alone in the lot, eyes darting as she stared into some kind of electronic device. Meredith didn't see a Homeland Security director. She didn't see a woman safeguarding the nation. All she saw was a threat. "No decent person acts like that around here," she muttered, then lifted the landline phone. Her voice dropped low, calm but precise. "Hello. I'd like to report someone suspicious in front of the gas station. Black female, holding something. Looks like a phone, but not quite. Could be some kind of device. Might be high. Eyes are shifting. Strange behavior." No one in the store could hear the call, and Meredith made sure of that. She hung up the phone like she'd just done the right thing, completely unaware, or simply indifferent, to the storm that call was about to unleash. In Elmsville, the word of a middle-aged white woman could turn anyone into a threat. And in Meredith's eyes, Selena Ward was guilty. Guilty by nothing more than her presence, in the wrong place, at the wrong time. What was coming next wasn't a response. It was a reflex. The reflex of a society still afraid to confront the darkness hard into the gas station lot, tires crunching loudly over gravel and cracked pavement. Doors swung open, and out stepped Sergeant Hank Drummond and Officer Eric Vale, moving like men certain they were about to neutralize a threat. Drummond, a large bald man with a commanding, arrogant tone, spoke first. "What are you doing here?" Selena looked up, her voice calm and steady. "I'm conducting an official call. I can present identification." She reached into the inner pocket of her jacket, pulled out her federal credentials, a badge, official orders, and a secure access code, documents powerful enough to halt a cabinet meeting. But Vale didn't bother to look. He glanced briefly, then shook his head. "Looks fake. You think we're stupid?" Drummond stepped in, snatched the documents from her hand, squinting at them like they were part of some cheap prank. "I don't know who you are, but you're making a lot of people nervous." Selena remained composed, but her eyes darkened, just slightly. "You're making a serious mistake. I'm the director. That's enough. Turn around, hands behind your back." The handcuffs clamped onto her wrists like a slap to her dignity. A few townspeople began to gather, phones raised. No one stepped in. No one asked questions. They didn't need the truth, because in that moment, no one saw a woman carrying out her duty. All they saw was someone who didn't look like them. And for them, that was enough. The cold metal cuffs locked tight around Selena's wrists. She didn't resist. She didn't fight back. She just looked straight into Officer Drummond's face, as if asking, "Do you really believe this ends well for you?" "Move," Drummond barked, shoving her firmly toward the patrol car. Selena's steps faltered as they pushed her toward the trunk. And in that split second, her secure phone slipped from her coat pocket, falling onto the scorching pavement with a soft but unforgettable click. From the speaker, a commanding male voice rang out. "Director Ward, signal is weak. Requesting immediate location confirmation. This is Homeland Security. Director Ward, report status." Both Drummond and Vale paused, just for half a second, then ignored it. Maybe they didn't understand. Maybe they just didn't care. Selena was shoved into the back seat of the patrol car like a common criminal. The window was dirty. Sweat beaded on her forehead. But it wasn't the heat that choked her. It was the quiet humiliation. Outside, people were still filming. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. No one approached. No one asked who she was. And right there, beneath the harsh sunlight and the cheap dust of a forgotten road, a woman who once held the highest levels of national security clearance in America was discarded as if she had never mattered at all. In Sublevel 3 of the Emergency Coordination Center at the Department of Homeland Security in Washington, D.C., a screen suddenly flashed from green to red. A message appeared. Level 1 Directorial Encrypted Signal. Unexpected disconnect. Bryce Taggart, the on-duty technician, young but meticulous, snapped upright in his chair. Director Ward's mobile signal just dropped. Backup channels aren't responding either. Last pinged location: Forest Creek Gas Station, Elmsville, Georgia. A strange, heavy silence settled across the command room. Phoebe Lynn, deputy director, turned sharply from the main monitor. Elmsville? She wasn't scheduled to stop there. Activate satellite tracking. Send emergency verification protocol. Fingers flew across keyboards. The satellite feed pulled up. A single blinking point, nestled between pine woods and a rural highway. She's stationary. No movement. And she's not responding to the retrieval command. Send a red priority signal. Request tactical response team from Jackson Base. She may have been intercepted. Phoebe didn't frown. She didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "If someone forgot who she is, we'll make them remember." The signal from Elmsville was fading fast. But in Washington, the storm was just beginning to form. The radio clipped to Officer Vale's shoulder suddenly crackled with a high-frequency signal. There was a brief burst of static. Then a firm, commanding female voice cut through. No introduction needed. "This is the Department of Homeland Security. Confirmation code Lima 47. You are currently detaining Director Selena Ward, who is executing a federal mission. You are ordered to release her immediately. Cease all actions and await federal instructions." His jaw twitched downward, eyes wide, as he turned to Vale. What the hell did she just say? Vale glanced at the ID badge he had tossed earlier, now lying crumpled in the front seat like trash. Then he looked at Selena, still cuffed, still silent, her eyes steady, without fear, without flinch. Drummond swallowed hard. He wasn't barking anymore. His tone had shifted, uncertain, exposed. You were serious? Director, what? No response. Selena simply looked at them, not with anger, not with contempt, but as if waiting for them to finally see what they should have seen from the start. The truth. Vale fumbled for the keys, his hand shaking slightly as he unlocked the cuffs. The metal snapped open, freeing her wrists. But some things, like dignity, don't come off that easily. Silence blanketed the gas station lot, and in that unbearable awkwardness, Vale murmured, "We're sorry. We didn't know." Selena's voice was low, but clear as command. "You'll know, not tomorrow, today." The low rumble of diesel engines echoed in the distance, faint at first, then louder, grinding stronger, like a statement that didn't need words. The crowd turned. A fleet of black bulletproof SUVs, stamped with federal insignias, sliced into the gas station lot, cutting through Elmsville like it didn't belong to this world. Gravel flew, dust rose, and before it could settle, the car doors flew open. Leading the charge was Colonel Marcus Reed, tall, sharp-eyed, not looking for someone to blame, but for truth to reclaim. He marched straight toward Selena, offering no greetings, except for a single nod, meant only for her. "Director Ward, are you injured?" Selena shook her head softly. "Physically, no, but my dignity didn't come out untouched." Reed didn't need more. He turned to face the local officers. "I'm the Rapid Response Commander out of Jackson Tactical Base. As of this moment, this area is a federal scene. All of your actions are now being documented and will be forwarded to the Office of Internal Investigations." Sergeant Drummond stammered, "We didn't know." "Not knowing isn't an excuse," Reed cut in. "You had the credentials, you had the chance, but you chose bias over fact." Vale dropped his head. Drummond took a step back, his hand falling from his belt, as if retreating from the very role he once clung to. The tactical unit formed a quiet line around Selena. No orders barked, no weapons raised, just presence, just clarity. This is our person. And for the first time since this story began, every eye in that crowd understood who truly held the power. Just hours after Selena left the gas station, a 47-second video hit social media. The footage was shaky, the image grainy, but the message cut sharper than any blade. A black woman, handcuffed, being shoved into a police car, while clearly stating, "I'm the Director of Homeland Security. You're making a serious mistake." No yelling, no resistance, just a calm, controlled voice, and a system choosing to ignore it. The video spread like wildfire. On Twitter, the hashtag #1 Justice for Selena Ward climbed to #1 trending in under 4 hours. Major outlets, CNN, MSNBC-REUTERS picked up the story almost simultaneously. Every headline struck the same nerve. One of the most powerful women in the country, and not even her title could shield her from racial bias. Civil rights attorneys called it a blatant violation of public dignity. Veterans in high-ranking positions came forward. If a federal director can be treated this way, what hope is there for the average citizen? Even the governor of Georgia, normally silent on national issues, held an emergency press conference. We strongly condemn what occurred, and we will fully support a federal investigation. Silence was no longer an option. From the corner of a dusty, outdated gas station in Elmsville, a single spark had ignited a national firestorm. Selena sat alone in the quiet room of the Strategic Response Center in D.C., a space where she had once directed security protocols and issued commands in the heat of national crises. On the table in front of her sat a thick file on the Elmsville incident, an official apology from the state police, and a signed pledge for a federal investigation. On paper, it was resolved, but inside, something in her hadn't returned to the way it was. She reached for the fading bruise on her wrist, a remnant of the handcuffs. Not because it hurt, but because it reminded her what it felt like to be made invisible. All these years of service, all the sleepless nights, all the lives saved, and still, all it took was a glance, an unrecognized name, a color of skin. And I was dragged away like I wasn't worth remembering. She didn't cry. Selena Ward wasn't the kind to cry. But in that moment, her gaze dimmed, as if staring into the fracture lines of a nation she had sworn to protect. Not because she was surprised. She had always known. But this time, it was too clear to ignore. That afternoon, the steps outside the U.S. Department of Homeland Security were packed with press. Cameras pointed squarely at a simple podium, where what was about to happen wasn't an apology, but a declaration. Selena Ward stepped forward. She was no longer in a khaki jacket and sneakers. Today, she stood before the world in full official uniform. Deep navy, commendation medals gleaming over her heart, a commander's insignia on her shoulder. There was no smile, no polite thanks, just a silence, firm, composed, unshakable, before she began to speak. I am Selena Ward. I've led operations to prevent terrorist attacks, handled cyber breaches, and protected this nation's borders. I've been invited into the Oval Office to advise presidents on matters of national security. She paused. Her voice slowed, but each word landed like a hammer striking stone. And yesterday in Elmsville, Georgia, none of that mattered. Her eyes scanned the wall of cameras. Each word came out clear, steady, with no need to shout. I was not humiliated. They were, and history will remember that. Shutters fired relentlessly. But Selena did not flinch. She wasn't there to soothe the crowd. She stood there for a reason far deeper, to speak for the millions who have no podium of their own. As the press conference came to an end, Selena didn't walk away right away. She paused, then turned directly toward those who had no microphone, no medals, no power, but carried the same quiet wound deep inside. I'm not speaking today to protect my reputation, she said. I'm speaking because too many others can't. The crowd behind the barricades fell silent. A young brown-skinned girl held up a hand-drawn sign. That could be me. A retired veteran placed a hand over his chest. A silent thank you in the shape of a nod. Selena looked into the lens one last time. Her voice didn't rise, but every word struck the heart like a drumbeat. When you're treated unfairly, your voice is the strongest weapon you have. Speak the truth, even when your hands are shaking. Truth doesn't need to be loud. It only needs to be spoken and never buried. She stepped down from the podium, each step steady, not rushed, not hesitant. The air was no longer heavy. It carried something else now. Responsibility. If you've ever been misjudged, ever been hurt simply for being who you are, then Selena Ward's story isn't just hers. It's ours. Share it. Stand up. And never choose silence.